While you're out in this world, you never know what's going to happen.
According to the Georgia Department of Transportation, 17% of fatalities are pedestrians. And among that statistic is one Middle Georgia man who lost his life after being struck and killed by a vehicle back in June. WGXA's Jayla Whitfield visited the scene with loved ones of Henry Brown today. Jayla.
Aaron struck by a vehicle. The deadly accident happened in June. Around the state and right here at home, pedestrian safety is a concern. Today I spoke with two siblings that lost their brother, and they tell me they want pedestrian safety to become a top priority in our community.
I miss my brother so much.
Robin Todd was in the hospital when she got the call that her brother was gone. Her first thoughts?
Oh my God, they're lying. That's my brother.
This summer, Henry Brown was struck and killed while crossing Pinona Avenue in front of Flash Foods.
Yeah, when he got struck by the vehicle, right out there.
Henry's brother, William Brown, never thought something like this would happen to his family.
Did you ever think this would happen to someone so close to you?
Oh, no, I did not. An officer come to my home and told me that my brother got hit by a car.
According to the initial police report, witnesses say the car that hit Henry did not stop and kept going, but later came forward.
What does it feel like being back in this spot where it happened at?
Panicky.
Now the Brown family is asking for change in Henry's honor.
Here are crosswalks here. There's too many people are getting killed.
I'd like to see them put up a rail light, crosswalk or something out here to slow it down, because there's a lot of people out here walking this area.
Henry's family is sending a cry for help to the city for pedestrian safety.
I wish I could let you go home.
Now, as I've mentioned, I reached out to the Bibb County Sheriff's Office, and they tell me the driver that hit Brown did come forward after the crash occurred, and no charges have been filed. For now, in the studio, Jayla Whitfield.
All right, Jayla, thanks. A murder suspect in a Georgia college student's death appeared in court today. Jordan Jones was denied bond, and prosecutors argued she's a flight risk and that she could intimidate witnesses. Her roommate, Clark Atlanta University student Alexis Crawford, was reported missing on November 1st and found dead in a park a week later. Prosecutors accused Jones of helping to kill Crawford to cover up evidence that Jones's boyfriend and the second murder suspect, Barron Brantley, had allegedly raped Crawford. Brantley's bond hearing was rescheduled for tomorrow when both defendants are scheduled for a preliminary hearing. Authorities say the mother of a missing 5-year-old Florida girl has been moved to a Jacksonville jail after spending a week in the hospital for an apparent overdose. Brianna Williams is charged with child neglect and giving false information to investigators in the disappearance of Taylor Rose Williams. Williams is being held on $1 million bond. Her daughter was the subject of an Amber Alert after the mom reported her missing on November 6th. And nearly a week later, authorities found human remains in Alabama. They're still working to positively identify those remains.
Good evening, everyone. Jeff Cox with you in the Skywatch Weather Center. Appreciate you staying up late with us tonight. A pretty decent day of weather across the region until we got into the mid-afternoon hours. Then we had some mid and high-level clouds come through, and that really stalled out our warming process. So we ended up with a high of 68 this afternoon, which is just above average. But how about the morning low, 35? Nothing out there said we'd get down to the mid-30s, so Mother Nature playing some games with it this morning. Certainly awfully chilly and well below average for this time of year. I don't think we'll be that cold tonight, and the reason why, some of that cloud cover that is in place. So here's our school day forecast for your Friday. Mid-40s at the bus stop, should rebound to the mid-60s by lunchtime, and close to 70 for the ride home. A good mix of sun and clouds throughout the day. Coming up later in the half hour, rain is coming. We'll time it out for you hour by hour. I've got the latest Thanksgiving outlook and your tropical update. Remember, Sebastian is spinning out in the Atlantic, where it's headed and when it could become a hurricane. That plus your 10-day forecast still to come.
All right, Jeff, thanks. Well, what could well turn out to be the final set of public impeachment hearings ended with witnesses providing additional details to stories that had already leaked out of the closed-door sessions. It capped a week of wall-to-wall coverage of hearings that President Trump dismissed as a hoax and a scam. Sinclair investigative correspondent James Rosen has a look back at the critical moments.
Of the week's witnesses before the House Intelligence Committee, only Gordon Sondland, U.S. Ambassador to the European Union, testified to direct communications with President Trump, Secretary of State Pompeo, and then National Security Advisor John Bolton about the back-channel campaign to get the Ukrainian government to investigate the Biden family.
When the president says, talk to my personal attorney, and then Mr. Giuliani, as his personal attorney, makes certain requests or demands, we assume it's coming from the president.
You know what hearsay evidence is, Ambassador? Hearsay is when I testify what someone else told me. Do you know what made-up testimony is? Made-up testimony is when I just presume it.
Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman of the National Security Council, who listened in on Mr. Trump's now famous July 25 phone call with Ukraine's president, described President Trump's request therein for a Biden probe as improper. GOP lawmakers implied that it was Vindman who alerted the anonymous whistleblower in the case to that phone call.
You talk to your brother, you talk to the lawyers, you talk to Secretary Kent, and you talk to the one guy Adam Schiff won't let you tell us who he is. Is that right?
Representative Jordan, I did my job.
And Russia scholar Fiona Hill testified that her boss, then National Security Advisor John Bolton, ordered her to sound the alarm internally about the conduct of Giuliani and White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney.
I had to go to the lawyers, to John Eisenberg, our senior counsel for the National Security Council, to basically say, you tell Eisenberg, Ambassador Bolton told me, that I am not part of this whatever drug deal that Mulvaney and Sondland are cooking up.
Now Democrats will argue internally over what the articles of impeachment should contain. All indications are that they will effectively indict President Trump for bribery or extortion, conditioning military aid on politically sensitive investigations, and obstruction of Congress, based on the withholding of documents and testimony by the White House and State Department. On Capitol Hill, James Rosen.
And continuing now, coverage on the impeachment inquiry, Dr. Buckner Melton Jr. is a historian and a legal scholar. He defines impeachment as a formal accusation by the House of Representatives for some sort of alleged wrongdoing committed by an officer or a person in power. Now, if the impeachment is passed by the House, then it has to go to the Senate in a type of trial.
The House of Representatives will, if you will, prosecute the case. They will choose probably something like a dozen members of the House to serve as impeachment managers or prosecutors in common parlance. And they will put on a case against the president. The president will probably not personally show up. In the past, he hasn't. Of course, with President Trump, he may. He breaks a lot of the molds. But certainly his lawyers will be there.
Guilty only if 2/3 majority vote to convict. Otherwise, if found not guilty by the Senate, the president will remain in power. Another family is mourning tonight after vaping is being blamed for a death. Straight ahead, the message they want to give to you tonight.